Welcome to the 5 o'clock show. It's time for Common Sense. Now, it's Katz and Cosby with John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby, standing for truth, justice, and the American way, bringing common sense to the world. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby.
Well, so many spies in Albany, in Washington, all over the place. Senator Feinstein had her driver for 10 years driving her, and she heard every secret the senator had to say on the telephone. Well, in the Hochul committee, they had another Chinese spy, and also she worked for Cuomo. With us in the studio right now to give us a 2-minute tidbit is former in charge. How do you say it, George? Agent in charge?
Assistant Director in charge of the New York office.
George Venizelos.
Yeah, in charge.
We love you, George.
The New York office for 4 years, George Venizelos. Tell us, does any of these people that work for U.S. senators that are talking on the phone in their cars, does any of them get vetted by the FBI? Do they have any kind of clearance?
Well, anybody who has any kind of clearance has to get vetted. Now, whether the driver has clearance, probably not. But the people who have the clearance, who have the knowledge and information, should understand they shouldn't be talking about classified information in front of people. So that's the issue here. And
well, U.S. senators, governors, mayors, there's so many secrets going around.
And this one's an aide, too, by the way, just to fill everybody in. It's a 64-page indictment. It's Linda's son, 41 years old, happened today, got arrested. And she and her husband, they're saying that they acted as foreign agents for China. And again, this was an aide in the governor's office in New York, there for 10 years.
And a senior person.
And yes, exactly. Person. So that's the question, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting because it's not the first time it happened. John talked about Washington. You had a congressman from California, Swalwell.
Yes.
Swalwell was removed.
Fang.
Right. He allegedly was sleeping with a spy.
She was like a fundraiser.
I saw that in a James Bond movie.
That's right.
That's why we played the music.
Just played.
Right, that's why we picked it.
But Kevin McCarthy, was Speaker, to his credit, removed Swalwell from that Intelligence Committee and Homeland Security.
And I remember Kevin had made a statement.
And Kevin McCarthy said, if people saw the briefing that I got from the FBI, they wouldn't put this guy on any committee in Congress.
Yeah, what was he? And he ended up, by the way, being on the January 6th committee. Pelosi said he could stay on that.
And the reality is that the Chinese have been a threat to this country for the last 20 plus years. It's always been a high threat when it comes to counterintelligence. Now, the FBI is making some inroads now, quietly in their own little quiet way.
And they did a great job here, at least getting them.
A lot of arrests throughout the country this last year. If you start looking at the arrests they made, the Chinese are a priority, and they know no politics. They work both sides. They divided the country, and they protect themselves.
There's 1.4 billion Chinese.
Right.
There's so many of them. The Chinese say, well, you 5 million will concentrate on Democrats. The other 5 million,
exactly.
You guys concentrate on Republicans.
And they go to the best schools.
Yeah,
right.
They get the best jobs.
That's the other thing.
And they're extremely smart.
And they said, what about the police stations in New York City? Right under our eyes, the Chinese police stations.
Let's move on. Also, last night, there was a press release on George Santos.
Right.
What did it say?
George Santos announced that there was corruption out in Suffolk County, and he accused the county chairman of inappropriate. Jesse Garcia.
I talked to Jesse today. You know what I said to Jesse Garcia? If anybody, George Santos has not told the truth for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years.
Ever. How about ever?
Right.
George Santos has never told the truth. And anybody that believes George Santos
is a fool.
Could be a fool.
Yeah, John, he's going to say anything and talk about anyone he can to try and save his own skin because he does not want to go to prison.
Right, he's trying to throw everybody under the bus.
I understand we have Professor Dershowitz on, but one more thing, an update on the poll. The update on the poll is will
Kamala Harris show up?
Going to show up at the debate. All right. The update is 54% of our listeners say no, she's not going to show up. 45% yes.
And they can still vote. Go to WABCRadio.com
and hit that button and vote, because my opinion, and I want to find out how Professor Dershowitz feels, that if she screws up real bad in the debate, she loses for sure.
It's a no-win situation.
It's a no-win. If she just gets sick and doesn't show up for the debate, I think she loses less votes.
The COVID excuse. The COVID excuse.
Let's go to the professor.
Let's go to Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, we got a whole bunch of stuff on Israel to ask you, but what do you think first off on the debate? Do you think she'll show up? What are your thoughts?
Depends on what you mean by show up. She will physically be in the chair, and she will have memorized 10 answers. No matter what the questions are, she'll give those pat answers. She knows she's going to be asked about the economy. She'll have an answer. There'll be follow-up questions. She'll have the same pat answer. She will say nothing controversial because her advisors told her she's going to win this election if she makes no mistakes, if she does nothing wrong. So she's not going to try to win the debate. She just doesn't want to lose the debate bad, and she is controlled. She, unlike Donald Trump, who you can't tell what to say, he's going to say whatever he believes. She is going to say what they tell her to say, and she will give that pat answer. She did the same thing during her interview with Dana Bash, and, she didn't lose that much. People criticized her for it, and they'll criticize her.
She broke even. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all she has to do at this point, because as a New York Times writer, a black New York Times writer, interestingly said, joy is a euphemism for race. That is, we are so pleased that there's a black woman running that we're going to vote for her, people say, no matter what, as long as she doesn't screw up badly. And so I think that's going to be the philosophy from now until the election. Make no errors, do no harm, float on your joy, and assume that Trump will make mistakes.
61 days. 61 days to go.
That's close.
That's right. He's
Craig
not going to
Eaton.
get over the 47%. Look, Trump made a serious mistake. If he had nominated as vice president somebody who could broaden his base beyond the 47 to maybe 48 or 49, he would have, I think, won. But he picked somebody just to solidify his base, which I don't think he needs. I think that was a tactical error.
Well, look at Tim Walz.
I agree with you 110%.
But John, look at also Tim Walz. Let's say on the other side, my God.
You know who I recommended to President Trump? I recommended Kamala. Based on,
You mean Nikki Haley? Nikki Haley.
Kamala.
I was like, wow, that's news.
I recommended Nikki Haley.
I recommended Nikki Haley because she got 4 million Republican votes, and that would have helped him.
Yeah,
and including Democrats like me, who would be much more inclined to vote for a ticket that had Haley on it. But look, Kamala made the same mistake. She also appointed somebody who doesn't broaden her base, may help her win in Minnesota, may help her win in Michigan, but she's not going to broaden her base by having somebody who's even to the left of issues. So of extremists on both sides, we're not seeing the best of the center in America. America is a centrist country. We want centrist candidates, and I don't think we're getting them on either side.
Craig Eaton.
You know what? I mean, you brought up a really good point, but the thing that concerns me the most, Professor, is she's just going to use the same talking points to every question, and that's going to drive President Trump crazy. Yeah, and he's going to get excited and excitable, and it's going to take the debate into a different scenario. That's what I'm afraid of.
It could help him, and it could hurt him.
Yeah.
So you know what's happening in this election. For the first time in American history since 1948, the election is becoming a referendum over Israel. More and more, the Biden-Harris ticket is turning anti-Israel. What Biden did yesterday, giving that dumb, ignorant, biased one-word answer when asked, is Netanyahu dying enough? Instead of saying, none of us is doing enough, I'm not doing enough, Hamas is not doing enough, England's not doing, Qatar is not doing enough. Of course, nobody's doing enough because the hostages aren't home. He says, no. Essentially put the blame all on Netanyahu. And then he said these protesters, these thugs, these Nazi youth, they have good points. So it's becoming more of a referendum. And a lot of people who are Democrats are not going to be able to vote for the Harris ticket. And we'll see if that has any influence on the key states. It may in Pennsylvania.
Columbia University, any update what's happening today?
It can't be good. I can tell you that. There's no university where good things are happening. You saw what happened in Wesleyan yesterday, where their president said, "I'm for free speech," but he's not for free speech. He would never be for free speech if people used the same tactics, wore masks, and were coming out against black people or gay people. But if they're coming out against Jewish people, hey, that's okay at Wesleyan. So don't believe this argument for free speech. Free speech, you believe an advocate of free speech when he really advocates free speech for things he doesn't agree with. And that's not what any of these college presidents are doing. They're trying to win popularity contests. They're trying to keep their jobs. And frankly, I hope very few of them keep their jobs. We need a complete turnover. We need the end of DEI, the end of BDS. We need the end. We're seeing the end of race-based affirmative action, and that's a good thing. And if we want our universities to survive and maintain their position as great universities, we have to really turn them upside down. Right now, they're not universities. They're propaganda mills.
Professor Dershowitz, about the protests last night, there were 7,000 protests just in New York alone. And there were people actually waving the Hamas flag. I couldn't believe it. Yes.
Pictures of Sinwar.
Yes.
This murderer, this killer. And, I'm sure if you ask these people, they would say, "Oh, I'm so glad that they killed these hostages, these 6 hostages. It was such a good thing because it helps undo the occupation." They would say that. They don't care if it's murder in the first degree, putting a gun up to somebody's head and killing them. These are Hitler Youth. They don't care about logic. They don't care about morality. They're just following the party line, and they ought to be called out on it. And any law firm, any business firm that hires one of these thugs has to have their head examined.
Anything else you want to tell the American people this Tuesday afternoon?
Oh, there's so much to talk about. But, this election is a really, really, really important election. And I talk to so many people who are undecided. I talk to people who are decided, but they won't say who they're voting for. We deserve better. We deserve more. And we deserve a movement to the center, to the middle, and we're not getting it. It's happening all over the world. It's happening in England. It's happening in France. It's happening in Germany, Italy, Canada. It's happening all over. We are seeing something that's reminiscent of what happened in the 1920s and 1930s in Europe, and it's very worrisome.
Wow.
Yes, it sure is. Sure is.
Thank you so much, Professor, and we'll catch up again real soon because we fight together.
We do. We
do fight together.
And, before I let you go, Professor Dershowitz, one quick question for you. Why hasn't the DOJ stepped in? I mean, my goodness. And to look at the funding of these people and to throw the book at these people. At last I heard, and George Venizelos with the FBI is here, Hamas is a designated terrorist organization by the U.S. government, and you're waving a flag of a terrorist organization. Why are you not being arrested? Hello?
Right. No.
Well, and there's a statute that says it is a felony to give material support to a designated terrorist organization. And the question is, are they giving material support? Are they taking material support? Are they getting funding from terrorist organizations, from a terrorist country like Iran? And I think the Justice Department has a proper role to play while preserving free speech and the right to demonstrate.
Yet they've done nothing.
No.
They've done nothing. And by the way, today so far at Columbia, as John was just talking about Columbia, a lot of people out there, very vocal protests, only 2 people arrested so far. Only 2 people arrested.
Nobody ever claimed these are pro-Palestinian. These are anti-Palestinian, anti-civilization, pro-Hamas demonstrations, pro-Nazi demonstrations. That's what they are. And nobody should mince words about it. This has nothing to do with being pro-Palestine. You can be pro-Palestine and believe in a 2-state solution. Not a single one of these signs calls for a 2-state solution or calls for a ceasefire that was agreed to by Hamas. Why don't they protest Hamas not giving a ceasefire?
Thank you, Professor. We'll talk to you again real soon. And now I understand that Congresswoman Nicole Mayotakis is calling in.
Good evening.
Hi, Congresswoman. How are you? We have so many questions. I have a whole bunch of all the stuff about migrant crime, but I first want to get to the Chinese spy stuff. We also have George Venizelos still with us, of course, the former head of FBI in New York, which we're so thrilled to have in studio with us here. First of all, your thoughts about this, that this person, clearly labeled now, arrested as being a Chinese spy, getting lots of money and a whole bunch of things are the allegations, was in the governor's office for 10 years. What does that say about China's infiltration in American politics and elsewhere?
Yeah, look, it's obviously very disturbing, and this is not the first time something like this has happened. You remember there was a Chinese spy who served as a driver for Senator Dianne Feinstein in California. There was the affair that Congressman Swalwell in California also had with a Chinese spy who had the police stations that the Communist Chinese set up here in New York that were shut down by the FBI, and they were spying on citizens that had fled China. They fled communism. Many of them were my constituents that fled this oppression, and they were very. And then
the Chinese go back and punish their parents.
Yep.
And in addition to that, you had them trying foreign nationals from the Communist Chinese affiliated individuals that were trying to purchase farmland close to our military bases. You had the Chinese spy balloon. So there's a history of this happening, and we really need strong leadership to stop what is happening. We cannot have this appeasement. And what we see, unfortunately, from this administration has been a lot of appeasement of communist China, whether it was re-entering the Paris Accords without requiring China to play by the same set of rules.
Yes, Nicole, I got George Venizelos in the studio with us, the former head of the FBI in New York, and we were talking about what can the FBI do, because somebody should be checking these people.
Yeah, Nicole, as you know, it's been a high priority for years with the FBI, and you are so right about the appeasement. That has to stop, because they're winning the war. They've divided our country, and they're protecting their country. They don't care about what happens here.
And they had infiltrated many of our universities, right? The Confucius Institute. Congress banned those institutes from being on these universities because they were infiltrating and brainwashing young people. But then you had this police station stuff happening, which was really deeply concerning, particularly for those who fled communist China, to be spied on like that. But what happened with the spy balloon, I think, sent such a wrong message. Allowing that spy balloon to come onto U.S. mainland and to be able to fly above our country, but on top of military bases, and to not have a better response. This administration failed to prevent it. They should have been proactive. They were very reactive. And I feel that that's one issue. And then there's the money laundering issue. We know that fentanyl is coming from China. It is poisoning our children. It's coming through the southern border, but the components of it is coming from China, and then it's being made in a lab in Mexico, then comes over our southern border. So the lax border policy has enabled China to do this, and it's really a big part of their money laundering scheme.
No, they hit us in many different areas. They're extremely smart. They know what they're doing. They're very organized, and they hit us in, like you said, you mentioned all these different areas. They hit us in every area. But buying buildings in Manhattan, overpaying for buildings, driving up prices, and then they walk away from these buildings.
And the other thing, let's not forget, they're making moves. They're building up these islands all across Southeast Asia. They're threatening Taiwan.
Philippines.
Yep. They're doing flyovers.
They are threatening the Philippines because the Chinese believe, according to Gordon Chang, the Chinese believe that they're in a position that there's the White House, nobody's making decisions. And
they'll make their move now.
And they make their move now
right,
before something happens.
Yep.
Yeah, but
really?
The Chinese Communist Party is funneling so much money into campaigns around the city of New York and the state of New York, and they're taking over a lot of the assembly and the Senate districts. And this is CCP money.
Wow.
Don't fool yourselves.
Well,
I know for a fact.
It's not just
Craig,
New York.
I could tell that's Craig's voice. And you know what, Craig? I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes.
Because My legislation is actually scheduled to be coming before the House soon. It actually passed my Ways and Means Committee, and this would penalize those 501c3s that are taking this foreign money and then funneling it to political action committees. As you know, we can't take foreign money in our campaigns, but yet these nonprofits take it and then they use them with their political arms. Black Lives Matter is a perfect example.
And you know how much money is coming in from foreign sources? Just below $100. $99. They keep the computers going overtime overseas and sending $99 to candidates because they don't have to report anything below 100.
But Nicole, there's a lot of cash coming in. The CCP, it's a lot of cash that's being funneled through these organizations.
Well, that is true. And I mean, and this is one of the things when we were investigating Hunter Biden, people have to follow the money there too. There was millions of dollars that was brought in to the Biden family, not just from communist China, from Russia, from Ukraine. Very concerning. And we've exposed all of it. That is one of the reasons why I think President Biden is not running for re-election, because he knew that our report was coming out. It was very scathing. And that we were going after him. And
Nicole, we're out of time. Craig Eaton wants to ask you one quick question.
I just want to say Nicole is my congresswoman in Brooklyn, and a lot of my friends have gone to her recently to ask to help with different things, and her staff, Sherry Diamond and her staff, has done an absolutely amazing job. I just want to say that, Nicole. They've said that your staff has really done an amazing job to help these people to get through the weeds with some of these governmental agencies. Thank you.
She's always fighting the good fight, too.
Yeah, okay, we got to go to a break. Thank you, Nicole. We love you, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
With you again. Bye-bye.
Let's go to a break, and we're going to come back with Joe Concha.
Exactly.
And we're going to find out. You saw what our polls are about if Kamala is going to show up. Let's see if Joe Concha has an opinion.
A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And joining us now here on Katz and Cosby is Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, also great columnist, and the author of a new best-selling book, Progressively Worse. Joe, give us the latest. You were talking about some of the new polls and the trends that are happening for Trump, despite the media clearly working for Kamala.
Incredible that what we've seen over the last 5 weeks, Katz, Rita, as far as a media coronation like we haven't seen probably since 2008 and the slobbering love affair that we saw for Barack Obama, but this has even been infinitely worse. And you would think after all of that, and Kamala doesn't do any interviews, and Tampon Tim Walz doesn't do any interviews, and all she's getting is all this adulation, and boy, she's the next great thing. And after all of that, Nate Silver, who does forecast models and probably as well as anybody out there, now shows Donald Trump with a 14-point advantage in terms of his chances of winning over Kamala Harris. So you see the trend now. It was 9 points, then it was 12, 13, now 14. Things are going in a wrong direction for her, and I think because of her economic policy and that what she announced 2 weeks ago now, where she talked about price fixing and price gouging. Katz, obviously, you're very familiar with profit margins in the supermarket industry, and she thinks that's going to solve the problem. That was a big reveal right there, because we haven't heard her really talk about it since, because everybody, including the New York Times, CNN, Washington Post, says this is a really bad idea. So I think once she starts speaking more and people really get to know her policies and what she wants to do to this country, which is completely destroy it and transform it in a way like we've never seen before, I think that's where Donald Trump really has the wind at his back. But it all comes down, that's a debate, September 10th, a little over a week from now, actually a week from now, and I think about it, it's already September 3rd, 80 million people tuning in. If Donald Trump is disciplined, he sticks to his economic message, sticks to his immigration message, Kamala Harris will be put away and they'll be looking for another candidate before we know it.
Well, we are doing a poll at WABC, and is Kamala going to show up for the debate next the 10th? Because my belief is that, she's a little bit on the light side, and she's fighting a heavyweight in Trump. So where does she get more votes? Not showing up, or showing up and making a fool of herself, then she has no chance of winning.
It's a lose-lose situation, right, Katz? Because we're already seeing her now trying to have it both ways where, oh, no, actually she wants cheat sheets now at this debate. She wants Donald Trump's mic on so she could do the I'm speaking now that she did with Mike Pence. She wants also to be sitting down instead of standing up. Why is she renegotiating all these things that Joe Biden and Donald Trump already agreed to? I think because she does want an out. Because we watched that interview last week, if you want to call it an interview, talk about like a hot stone massage that she got from Dana Bash where there were almost no follow-up questions. She didn't have any energy. She looked tired. It looked like a parent-teacher conference with Tim Walz sitting on one end of the table, and there she is. And all the joy seemed to be out of the room all of a sudden, and she just didn't look comfortable because she's not comfortable in her own answers because she's changed positions so many times. So I think she wants out, but if she does that, I mean, it will look so bad. But then again, it could be infinitely worse if she shows up.
Well,
I
maybe
think it's going to go worse for her than it did with Biden. Go ahead.
Well, Joe, I don't believe she has the knowledge to be able to learn it in the next 9 days. So the question is, how does she look less bad? Because if
that's the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to. And that's my opinion. Rita?
Yeah, you know what, Joe, I agree with John that the other thing too that I noticed, and kind of piggybacking on what you were also saying, is that interview. In the interview, she looked like she got that canned line from somebody. My values haven't changed. She kept saying it over and over again. It looked like she couldn't handle even just a basic question. How is she going to handle like 20 canned lines that they're going to try to throw at her for the debate? It is going to be an astounding moment. And I really thought the interview hurt her. To John's point, I thought she looked kind of vacuous. And listen, I am a huge women's supporter, but I thought she would do a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, one question she got, which is, if you're going to anticipate any question, it is, what are your plans on day one if you get elected? And she couldn't answer that question, right? And then she went into how important the Green New Deal is and climate change. Like, uh-oh, you're going to go down this path now at this point? And she lied. She blatantly lied when she said, no, back in 2020 on the debate stage, I said I was pro-fracking. I'm for fracking. No one can find a transcript around this. So her best reviews of that interview were, well, she got through it. Well, I think the bar should be a little bit higher than she survived a CNN interview, right? So, yeah, I think that this debate, again, Trump just has to be disciplined. Stay away from you're incompetent, you're dumb, all the insults he doesn't need. He has every issue on his side. Economy, inflation, crime, the border, foreign policy, all of it. He just has to be the Trump that he was with Joe Biden on June 27th in Atlanta.
Yep, and we just have a few seconds left, Joe. Real quick, Tim Walz, her running mate, is also dodging the media. He gets asked a basic question at the fair yesterday. An important question about the hostages that were killed, and he doesn't even answer that. I mean, it's like he's kind of taking the same strategy.
Yeah, he hasn't done any interviews either, right? He did that one where I guess he answered like 2 or 3 questions from Dana Bash. But yeah, all he says is goodbye. When you're asked about American hostages that were executed, that's your answer? So, yeah, worst VP pick I can remember ever. All she had to do was pick Josh Shapiro, and that would help her win Pennsylvania. And she went with this clown instead. And now he's exposing himself as well as the stolen valor guy and the guy who let Minneapolis burn to the ground. And apparently somebody else who's afraid to talk to the media. It has not been a good 2 weeks for this campaign, no question.
Yeah, no question about it. Joe Concha, thank you so much. Really great to have you here, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Always awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care.
When I saw the
Fox News. Well, thank you, Joe Concha. I'll tell you, Rita, I don't think the 14 points ahead is right. I hope it was right.
On the Nate Silver poll.
But I don't think some of the crap they're putting on CNN and other channels that Kamala's ahead. There's no way, in my opinion, she's ahead. But let's go now to the hot news of the day.
It's the top news of the day, sponsored by Goya. Here's Rita Cosby.
And, John, here are some of the hot stories. Well, we are just 1 week away, literally, from the first debate between former President Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. We'll see if she shows. You can go to our poll on WABCRadio.com. And also, Republican Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance is scheduled to visit Arizona tomorrow, while Trump is set to hold a rally in Wisconsin on Saturday. Harris will visit Pittsburgh on Thursday after she and President Biden rallied alongside each other in Pennsylvania for the very first time since Biden dropped out or was forced out. That happened yesterday. And also, pro-Palestinian protesters are demonstrating in a big way outside of New York's Columbia University. Classes started today for the fall semester, and dozens of students are marching outside of one of the entrances at the school's Morningside Heights campus. There are new rules in place this semester. Campus officials say they will not allow encampments. And everybody, those are the hot Goya stories of the day.
You're commuting home with Katz and Cosby. Now, here's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby on 77 WABC. Breaking news, WABC.
And just in, the Justice Department has announced criminal charges just a little bit ago against Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar and other militants in connection with October 7, 2023. Saying that they conspired to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization resulting in death. My question is where have they been?
No, my question is there a reward?
Yeah, hey, interesting. Judge Weinberg, give me a break.
I'll give you a break.
Yeah.
How about the Justice Department giving us a break? They had a year to do it. They're doing an election season. That's number one. Number two, even more importantly, where's the Biden-Harris administration demanding from Iran and Hamas that they give back our American citizens a year ago? Come on, let's give us a break. This is absolute pure politics. Biden and Harris never said a word about the Americans being held hostage and who've been killed, and the Justice Department did nothing.
And they're still being held today.
We have on hold General Kellogg?
Yes, we do. Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, of course, former National Security Advisor during the Trump administration. General Kellogg, first off, let me get your reaction to this breaking news that now the Justice Department is filing charges. To the judge's point, I mean, give me a break. They could have filed charges against Hamas years ago, even before October 7th.
Yeah, I think the judge had a right. Actually, I thought you were doing a promo for a new comedy show.
Yeah, exactly. That's how we felt when we saw this news.
Really, look, it's been, Rita, it's been 11 months since that. And there's Americans held hostages. And, oh, by the way, they just executed one. I mean, this is one of those that I think when it comes right down to it, this is now an American issue. I mean, you can do a lot of different things. And this is one of those where, and I go back to Teddy Roosevelt in 1904, when it was Paracatus alive or Razuli dead, when somebody took an American and he sent the Mediterranean Squadron 4 ships. We got our individual back. Or when Phil Walton in 2020 was captured by bandits in Niger, and we sent SEAL Team 6 across the Atlantic to get him and killed 6 bandits and recovered 1 guy. This is the time when I think the President of the United States should say very clearly to the American people, I am telling Joint Special Operations Command and DOD that their requirement is to find those 4 Americans and bring them home. Period. And then I would tell the people that are supporting Hamas, countries like Qatar, like there's a huge air base there, Al Udeid Air Base, the largest one in the Middle East. We're going to shut it down. There's 100 companies that work out of Qatar. We're shutting them all down. And you look at these countries, you do the associated organizations and corporations and nations and tell them, put them on notice. Americans will walk unfettered across the land. If you harm an American, as President Trump said, in the State of the Union in February 2020, he said, if you attack an American, your life is forfeit. That's what we need to say, and that's what we need to execute. And the fact that this was an American, and remember his name, Hersh Goldberg Pollen, he lost an arm during the attack on 7 October. They kept him caught as a hostage for 11 months and then shot him in the back of the head. I'm sorry, game over. And this is when we say to the world, to the American people, nope, now it's on our watch, and do something about it. The Israelis have done their job. This is in Gaza. It's not part of Israel. We'll finish the job. If we don't say things like that, we will not have any credibility in the Middle East.
Let me ask you, General Kellogg, do you think we need to do something? In other words, send in some covert forces, because there are still believed to be 4 Americans alive.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. This is when you draw the line. You said if you attack an American, anybody who walks the rules in America should feel safe. We're coming after you. And we don't care about the consequences. Okay, this is the way it's going to be. And we haven't done that. We've relied on the Israelis to do it, and the Israelis have done a hard job. But they just executed 6 people, 1 female and 1 American. Didn't do anything about it. You find people hard-pressed to say and talk about the tragedy of it all. I mean, this is one, do not screw with the United States of America. That's the reason I gave you 2 historical references of what Teddy Roosevelt did in 1904 and what President Trump did in 2020, when there was a single individual taken hostage, both times by bandits, and both times the United States of America responded, one by setting a squadron of 4 ships, gunboat diplomacy 101, and the president sending SEAL Team 6. That's how you handle this.
Yeah, absolutely. General Kellogg, Judge Weinberg has a question.
General, good to talk to you again. I'll tell you what troubles me, General. The whole business of hostage diplomacy. You grab people, you negotiate off their lives. It only encourages more hostage taking. All the pressure is being put on Israel by the Biden-Harris administration. Why isn't the pressure being put on Iran and Hamas and all the other surrogates? Why are we getting this totally in reverse?
Well, Judge, it's a great question. I think because they're basically trying to be this Biden-Harris administration equal-handed. Well, there's good on both sides. There's bad on both sides. No. Hamas is a terrorist organization. They killed hundreds, over 1,000 Israeli citizens in a surprise attack on the 7th of October. They're brutal. They've executed 6 just recently, just the other day. And there's no balance at all. I mean, we should say very clearly, we stand behind the democratic state of Israel, full stop. That's it.
They kill for money.
Everybody else don't do it. Pardon?
They kill for money.
Yep. Oh, we know that. We know they do that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No rules.
Well, thank you, General Kellogg. Thank you for speaking out and everything you've done for our country, and continue to speak out for our country. And we're going to catch up with you again real soon.
Thank you, General.
Thanks, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General.
Let's take a break, but nobody hang up. We had the famous back from vacation, Bill O'Reilly, for the next 15 minutes. Don't hang up.
It's a common sense recap of the big stories. It's Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
Well, we are back here on Katz and Cosby.
He was on vacation for over a week. We missed him.
We missed him.
Bill O'Reilly is back.
Yay, Bill, mega best-selling author and, of course, host of Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly.
I just got his new book by FedEx.
Yeah, and his book is coming out, John, on his birthday, right? Am I right, Bill?
Yeah, but we don't want to publicize that, Rita. It's a week from today.
I'll auction it off at the birthday party.
And I'm 84 years old, full of Botox. And we're looking forward to the release of the book. So I'm staring at the WABC radio ratings for August right now as I'm talking to you. So your show, Katz and Cosby, is beating the competition on WOR 5-1.
Is that all?
Wow. I thought it was 50-1.
It doesn't count that it doesn't count. It doesn't count. It does not count that we're also on 970.
That's like defeating the other team 49-0. Okay. What do you want to rub it in there, John?
You know he does. By the way, that is great. We knew we were doing well, so thank you for spreading the good news here too, Bill. Thank you.
Congratulate Sid in the morning, Colossal, Curtis at noon, and of course I'm part of that. Curtis will never admit it.
We'll admit it.
And then the nighttime numbers for O'Reilly and Cosby are phenomenal as well.
Wow. Yay.
Everybody says, oh, nobody listens to AM radio at night. No, they are. And so congratulations to WABC. And it's all about the election coverage. That's what my analysis is. The reason that WABC radio is doing so well and attracting listeners not only in New York but all over the country is because we're pretty straightforward in giving out information about the election. We're not in anybody's pocket. And I think that's very important in this day and age.
Yeah, I do too. It's fair where, our motto, as you know, Bill, and listen, you do Common Sense with Bill O'Reilly. It's tell the truth, and it's speak as an American, speak as someone who loves the community, loves this country. And I think that's translating, don't you?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Also, the coverage of the Middle East has been very, very good on WABC. And so there's a large Jewish population in New York.
We give them intelligence reports. We give them intelligence reports that Washington doesn't have.
That's right. And the large Jewish population depends on our reporting because they're not going to get that from anyone else. Now, I was listening to Dershowitz at the top of your show, and he was correct in his assessment of the debate a week from today. So September 10th, big day, confronting the president. You guys pick that up in the morning or pre-order it now. And then the debate's at night. Dershowitz said, in case people just tuned in, that Kamala Harris is going to come in with 10 rehearsed answers. And no matter what she's asked, she's going to spit those answers out. And that's true. But what Donald Trump has to do in that debate, and this is the defining moment of the campaign, this is it, is that he himself has to define Kamala Harris. So he can't count on the ABC News people, Muir and Lindsay Davis. I forget her last name.
Lindsay Davis.
Okay. Trump can't count on those two to ask perceptive questions. They're not in the tank. I don't think they're going to try to help Harris, but they're just not as astute in political analysis as they might be. Again, I'm not disparaging them. So what Trump has to do when the microphone is open and he gets to speak is say, before I get to your question, David, I'd like to ask the vice president a very simple question, or maybe you could do it as well. Why, when I left office, was inflation 1.4%, and a year into your administration, madam, it was over 9%? Why did that happen? Can we have that? If Trump would do that 6 times, once on the pricing, once on the border, once on Afghanistan, once on Ukraine, and then coming back to the crime and the social disorder, he would lay out 6 questions in his time because Kamala Harris can't answer any of them. That would turn the tide of the election.
That's why the poll we're taking on WABC, that I don't know how many votes came in, a couple 100,000, that she's not going to show up for the debates, 54%. She is going to show up 45%.
Yeah, or no, the other way around. 54, we're agreeing she would not.
She would not.
Yes. And then the 45 said yes, she will.
You know why? My opinion, Bill O'Reilly, my opinion is that if she lost the debate as badly as Biden did, she's lost. She's gone. If she doesn't show up because she has COVID or for any other reason, she's hiding in the basement, then she won't lose as many votes.
Do you think she'll show up, Bill? What do you think?
Yes, she'll show up.
Okay.
I'm with Bill. I think Bill's
I think she'll show up.
I got $1 bets with 4 different people.
That's a lot of money.
Wait a second. I'm putting my money up too. She's going to show up.
Now, here's what Dershowitz said earlier in the show. As you know, she said she'll show up. Yeah. But no. But she said Dershowitz said she'll show up. It's how she'll show up. Do you believe that, as you mentioned before, she'll go to these canned answers? See, I think she'll do some of that, Bill, but I think she'll add another layer to it. And I think we're underestimating something. And this is during the primary debates. She did have some zingers, and I'll give her credit. She had some zingers against Biden. She had that famous line of, I was the girl on the bus, during who came back after segregation, I was the one, I was the second one on the bus, remember? And it really was pretty blistering to him. Obviously he ended up picking her, but she's got some zingers, and I think she's going to throw a couple real zingers. That's why she wants those mics unmuted. Your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, she might, Rita, but it doesn't matter. And she didn't take the bait on the CNN situation when Dana Bash said, what about the skin color remark from Trump? Harris said, I'm not going to talk about it. It's gone. I don't think Harris wants to get into that mud fest because it doesn't help her. What she wants to do is present this nice, wholesome, joyful countenance to the American public. The reason Hillary Clinton lost and Trump beat her in 2016 was that Americans did not like Hillary Clinton. The reason that Trump isn't ahead by 7 points when he should be because of policy is because millions of Americans don't like him. Harris knows that. She's going to come in and try to be Aunt B from the Andy Griffin show, okay? If she could bake everybody a pie, she would. So I don't expect her – she might throw a few at him trying to provoke him.
Yep.
That's possible. But that's not her game. Her game is he's the devil. I don't really have to talk about that. You already know it. And I'm joyful. I'm the person who has a buoyant spirit, and I'll help you. Vote for me, Kamala. That's what she's trying to portray.
Yeah, no, listen, I agree. I think it'll be a balance.
I just got an update from Rich Rodabali. Current results, 55% no, she's not going to show up. 45% yes, as of right now.
For our poll on whether Kamala shows up. So all of you
listeners, go out there and go to WABCRadio.com and vote.
Okay. I mean, look, people believe what they want to believe. That's my prevailing wisdom after all these years on the planet. Kamala Harris will show up. She has to show up. The reason is her support, her baseline is very thin. Where Trump's support is rabid. The MAGA people are rabid. Kamala Harris does not have that. She has, I'm not Trump. If she gives people a reason to suspect her, which she would by not showing up to a massive debate, she'll lose.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, Bill, I got one more question. I don't know if you heard the part. We had George Venizelos with us, and he's still in the studio. And George has said to us that the Chinese has infiltrated our Senate, has infiltrated our Congress, has infiltrated our governors. They're all over the place. What do we do?
You can't do anything about that. There's always been spying. The United States has CIA operatives in every country that matters on Earth. And when they're uncovered, and this woman who was arrested lives very near me, by the way. I don't know her. But it's pretty frightening. So when you have a top advisor to both governors, Cuomo and Hochul, and she's taking money from the Chinese government, that's a pretty big deal.
Oh,
but there's nothing
how about the one?
There's nothing you can do.
Yes.
Stop it. It's a crime. She committed a crime. And thank God they found out, but I have to give her due process. I'm sure she'll plead not guilty.
Could you imagine the one Senator Feinstein, a high-up U.S. senator, that her driver for 10 years was listening to her phone calls?
Yeah, and we had the other guy.
Swalwell.
Yeah, who was involved with an affair, right?
Yes, yeah, the fundraiser, Feng Feng.
Yeah, this is always going to be the case. We, the United States, have people in Beijing and Shanghai and Hong Kong. And I don't know what they're doing over there, but I know they're there. So this is the way the Cold War, which is heating up, is waged.
What are you going to be talking about? You're back from vacation. What are you going to be talking about at 9 o'clock on WABCRadio.com, BillO'Reilly.com?
Yeah. I'm taking a surgical approach to this election, not a partisan approach. And tonight we're going to debunk once and for all the accusation against Trump that he called dead U.S. servicemen in Europe losers. That did not happen. Yet Pelosi and others are still running around saying it did happen. Walz is saying it happened. And it's despicable. I'll prove it tonight on Common Sense at 9 o'clock on WABC.
Great. Well, we will definitely be tuning in. Yeah, you always have good stuff. Welcome back, Bill.
I'll be listening. Welcome back.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me in, as always.
Always love it. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, we got a minute left, guys. George, what do you think? George Venizelos, FBI.
Well, I think there's a lot more Chinese operatives in this country than we have in their country. I can tell you that.
That's for sure. A lot more Chinese in America.
Yeah. By the way, crossing the border.
A lot more money here from them than us spending money over there.
And crossing the border, as we brought up. Remember, Gordon Chang talked about how they're like doing military exercises
What the Treasury Department is not telling you, George, because you were a different department, is a lot of that Chinese money is Chinese money. It's counterfeit U.S. dollars.
Yes. That's very funny, Chinese.
Yeah. Wow.
You get it. Listen, you get the real.
You get the real scoop.
They print their money.
As Bill O'Reilly
so they
said,
don't need Bitcoin?
I've heard that.
As Bill O'Reilly said, you get the real news at 5 o'clock.
Yep.
Judge Weinberg, anything real? Well, 30 seconds.
So you don't need Bitcoin to pay people off. You can use Chinese money.
Well, no, the prime ministers, the crooked prime ministers take the Bitcoin. Craig,
you know what, John? We're in trouble. This country is in trouble. We need some sanity here. We need people to go out and vote for the best candidates for the Senate and Congress and the state and local elections. We need to change the tide.
Can I say one thing? I want to pop some champagne because Bill O'Reilly just told us we're 5-1 the competition. So we have a lot to celebrate.
Wow. Not counting 970.
Okay, yeah, that's right.
It
so then we might be 6 or 7-1. Wow, good news.
Well, what do we all stand for?
Truth, justice, and the American way.
God bless America.